the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt. The hunting journey continues. Let's get into it. Okay, so I'm sure everybody's been talking about this lately, or you're feeling it. The cost of living is going through the roof at the moment. And, ammo, oh my God. I went to the range the other day and threw about 50 pills down. And then I sort of worked out the costs and went for my 308. I'm shooting Hornady Precision Hunters at the moment at $96 for 20. And for me, geez, I know, look, if you're only hunting and you don't go to the range a lot, yeah, great. It's not the biggest deal, but I like to shoot a lot. And I know a lot of people out there that hunt do actually like shooting as well. So tonight, I thought I'd get on Simon from Hazztech and have a chat to him about some reloading, some Cerakoting, and just see where we go. So Simon, mate, welcome. Thanks for joining the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Mate, let's get into you because you are you're going all right up there in the mountains with your shooting.
Yeah, look, it's I've been with Lithgow now for a few months, and yeah, getting some consistent results, and yeah, doing it all with a budget Hower.
My Hower long range setup, which I haven't really pushed too much because my closest range only goes to 200, but I rate the Hower. I have pretty good accuracy over it, and I put up a couple of photos the other day of my groupings, and we had a bit of a chat about that because you were saying I do 3-round groupings, and you were talking about 5 could be a better way. Do you want to tell us why?
Yeah, we did. Look, I think 5 gives you a bit more of a realistic average of what you're actually going to do when that moment comes to let the trigger go. There is those trains of thoughts. 3, especially with ammo, especially if you're using factory, well, another 2 rounds, that's another $6 or $5. So I can understand where 3 is sometimes enough, but sometimes 5 just gives you that a bit more of a realistic average. Yeah, a lot of old timers like the 5, but then again, some like the 3. So it really is a personal preference at cost, but I'm a fan of the 5.
In saying that, I did 3, and that was with both the 6.5 Creedmoor and then the 308. And for the extra 2, this is how crazy ammo is at the moment, $19.20 for the 308 on Hornady Precision Hunter. And they're great pills. They just... Yeah, I can't talk about them more highly, but the price tag is really starting to sting. And as I said, I think I put 50 down range in a morning session. And then when I did the sort of calculations on that, they weren't all obviously costing, the $9.60. But, man, holy crap. Sorry, I think my math's a bit out there. The $4.80 a pill. So apologies, $4.80 a pill. That's lucky I'm not lucky I don't do a job with maths. So, yeah, we're still talking big numbers here. And for me, one of the things is how do we get around that but shoot accurately? And so I started to dip my sort of little toe into the reloading. That's how we started, I guess, chatting a little bit and said, well, what is the benefit to reloading? What are some of the things? Because you've won a couple of tournaments up there. So who better to talk to than someone that's, doing pretty good as an up-and-comer? And, mate, ammo, reloading, let's get into it. What are your thoughts? You obviously do it, shooting so much.
Yeah, I shoot every week, obviously, and there is absolutely no way I could go and spend, 120, 140, 160 if you want good stuff every week. I just do not have those funds where I can reload and I can do it for under 30. So, with reloading, yes, the initial outset or outlay, I suppose, is quite expensive. You need a press, you need your dies. But once you've got it, you can, if you shoot a lot, obviously, someone like myself that shoots weekly, you're before 6 months, before your first 6 months, you're ahead. Once you buy all your gear, you need to reload. Yeah. So it's just, and then it's just, buy once, cry once. I think it's probably one of the best things to think of when it comes to reloading. You can get some cheap stuff, and you can get some stuff that you'll buy once and you won't buy again. This day and era, it's very, very hard. For instance, like just a standard press. I run the RCBS Rock Chucker. I think they're about 600 maybe. I'd have to.
No, I think you're pretty right. I think I looked at them. They're about 680, 690.
Now that's just for the press. Obviously, RCBS do the kits as well. They have a few cheaper ones, but I mean the full kits are still they're still pushing, $900, $1,000. And even that, you don't have everything that you need. Whereas Hornady do some kits, and Lee do some kits as well. I mean, Lee probably, their start-off kit, oh, mate, you can probably be up and running for $600 with Lee. And that's with I think they come with a trickler, just a cheap, lightweight powder measurer or powder thrower. You got a press. So, yeah, it's really... you can go so many different ways with what you go with. I mean, I don't even have a powder thrower at the moment. I use a spoon. I literally sit there with the scale, and it can be tedious, but I've chucked some spoons in there and they've been spot on. So, and it happens more. You get a bit of a gauge, you eye it and think, oh, that's going to be pretty close. And yeah, I've had a few that just bang, 45 grains. Thanks for coming. But yeah, it's so. Eventually, yes, but again, I go off that buy once, cry once. I know what I want to get, but the one I want's about $400. So I'm happy just to persevere with what I've got now, and that'll be down the track. And that's the beautiful thing with reloading. You can, you can buy cheap stuff if you want, and you can either pass it on to a friend, because some people are extremely passionate with reloading. I know, like, I can speak for myself. It's almost like therapy. I can sit there and, clean up brass, size brass, load them, and it's peaceful. I'm sure there's people that are time poor and don't really have that option too. But I do feel it's getting onto the cost of factory stuff. People that don't shoot often, a few boxes, it's okay. But if you're doing it every week or, once a fortnight, it's a lot of money, especially when you add everything else up, petrol to get there, range fees. We went down to St Mary's, and I think it cost you, non-members, you basically get a little bit of change out of $50, and that's just to shoot there. It goes to 50 yards, so it's good for 22s, obviously, and handguns, and big guns it's all right too, but it's 50 yards, you know what I mean? It's not any big distance.
Yeah. And look, that's one of the things I've looked at, because it's funny when we start throwing the numbers out, isn't it? Like saying, a whole kit's close to $1,000, but most scopes are going to be that.
Well, that's exactly it.
You know what I mean? Like, people have no qualms about throwing into that. Now, I get with the reloading side of it can get quite technical, and I want to sort of break down, because we do have a lot of new people into firearms and hunting that listen to the podcast. So I sort of want to get down into all the different sort of components and how hard it is to sort of put it all together, and, throwing some terminology out. I know you were throwing out before, like how many grains go into the bullet. And for someone that can be sort of a little bit of daunting, if I've got a couple of mates that are just getting into hunting, they're really fresh. Hearing about this is probably going to be sort of like, whoa, what's going on? What's a grain? So
yeah.
Can we unpack what not the full process, because, there's a million YouTube videos out there. I don't want to go into that much detail, but what are the different components, and, how hard is it to get sort of going up and running into, being able to set up, reload, and be confident and safe?
I think just that last few notes, Matty, are probably the best thing and the biggest thing to highlight: confidence and safe. When you're playing with powders and stuff, it can be dangerous if you don't want to be on the beers if you're learning how to do it. You really need to be switched on, because I guess it's happened to lots of people, and it's even happened to me. You've gone on the mound, you've fired, bullet didn't go, and you think obviously you think it's a hang fire miss, so you basically wait your 30 seconds, round doesn't go. Stupid me, didn't put any powder in there. And basically what can happen if you don't have any powder in there, the primer can still ignite and it can jam the bullet up the barrel. And then, a lot of the times, I guess it's all caliber too. So if that happens in a 223, being that there's not a great deal of recoil, someone who's not experienced, if that happens, they're just going to chamber another round, aren't they? And they've already got a pill. It's halfway at the just past, in this first part of the barrel. So it can really be, it can be a worry. And I think, it does. You need to err on the side of caution with it. But within saying that, I guess that's all the negative sides of reloading. The benefits are huge. We have cost factor. As I said before, 30 cal stuff, I can do 2 details with some siders, so what's that? That's 12. It's about 24 rounds. Do it for under $30. So compared to your
96, that's a big saving. And if you throw, if you're going down there and spending a couple of hours at the range, geez, you're almost paying 20% off the press. Straight up, aren't you? In one shooting session.
100%, and that's why I said that's 6 months. It can only take. It doesn't need to take long to pay that up to make it up. So and look, I think for you guys too, and even myself, I just think taking away from firearms, just anything in general, YouTube is brilliant at times, mate. There's so many things. There's any topic you can think of. There's something on there that's going to give you a real good idea before you decide to. In our instance, we're talking about reloading before you make the leap. So I did. There's Eric Cortina. He's an American, great, very knowledgeable, very good shooter. He makes some great videos. There's heaps. I could rattle off heaps. But I think with reloading gives you a lot more opportunities for bullet development. Now, factory stuff these days is pretty accurate stuff. It's good stuff. With the reloading, you can make your group smaller. You have powder options to try, faster burning powder, slower burning powder. You also have the option of seeding your bullets at different depths, and that's I've been doing that. I started reloading pretty much straight away. I've had obviously fired plenty of rounds in the army, but when I got into shooting, but I got straight into reloading straight away because I knew that it's not feasible for me to go and spend that every week. So it was my only way of really doing it, and I'm hooked on it, mate. Absolutely love it. I've tried with my rifle. I've tried loads. Jammed on the lands. 5 thou, 10 thou, 20 thou, 30 thou, 40, 50, even 60 thou off the lands. And I've been doing development with 2208 powder and 2206H. I think with the 06H powder, I'm running about 43.5 grains at the moment, and with 2208, it's about 45, and I'm usually pushing 155s or 168 grains. So and I'm experimenting. Most people that I know guys from my club that have been using the same recipe, so to speak, for over 20 years.
And I think that's the big one, isn't it? Like once you're dialed in and you get that recipe that's ready to go for your barrel, and I think that's the big one, because when you get it dialed in and you have that recipe and it's working, it's just in tune, the harmonics of that barrel is just running right, your accuracy and your groupings just come right in. And you can't do that with factory ammo.
No, look, that's just one of the benefits. But I think too another a big thing too, like just talking on while we're on barrels. Obviously, there's different twist rates, so the lower the twist number, it's a faster moving bullet. For instance, 308s, they're generally a 1 in 10 or a 1 in 11 twist. I prefer 1 in 10. Especially for a 24-inch, a shorter barrel, maybe I'd want 1 in 11, you know what I mean? Maintenance and cleaning barrels. I know a lot of hunters that very rarely clean it, so the fouling can sometimes actually help your rifle, help you with your accuracy, believe it or not, in many occasions. It truly is something that I'm testing whether I'm over cleaning or under cleaning. Hunters generally don't need as much accuracy as a target shooter needs, but in saying that, it should be a priority as well. You should be wanting to be accurate. You want that one shot kill, don't you?
Well, I think the closer you can get your group when you're shooting regularly and the smaller it gets, you have the ability to reach out that little bit further and be confident with it because it's not going to move as much when you do. And in some circumstances, you really, like it's hunting. It's when you're in the bush, it's not shooting at a target. You just don't know what's going to happen. So
that's right.
I personally, as for myself, I want to be as accurate as possible so that when I'm put in any position, I'm comfortable taking that shot or I'm not going to take that shot. That's just my personal sort of stance. And that's sort of how I operate. Can we go back a little? Because you threw out a couple of numbers there and some terminology that I know people are probably going to sit there and go, what does that mean? So I want to talk about the difference in grains because we've got grains as in the grain of the bullet, and then we've got grains in the powder, and then also we talked about lands. So can you just break sort of the differences there down in the sense that when you're talking about the grains, I think you sort of were saying about 45, 48, somewhere around there for the grains of powder.
Powder charge, yep.
Yep. What's that?
Yeah, so it's your gunpowder basically. We have ADIs, Australian Defence Industries, is the same stuff we use in the armies. Use their brass as well, and I actually use their brass now as in the civvy world, and it's good shit. So yeah, with powders, there's quite a few types. And the good thing and this is a good thing for some of the guys too, like you watch anything on YouTube, like i.e. Ultimate Reloader or Eric Cortina or anything, and they'll talk about powders like Varget. We don't have Varget here, but ADI on their website, they have a cross-reference. So you think, what's Varget? What's that for? If you look up Varget on their site, it'll tell you it's 2208 powder. So you can understand what they're using to help you work out what those guys are using over there. I think ADI stuff's good quality powder. Some of the American powders I've heard some bad stuff about. I've only ever used ADI stuff. And I think everyone from my club, we all run ADI, and I think every other hunter or shooter that I know of uses ADI. So yeah, so grains, different cases obviously have different capacity to hold different amounts of powder. You got to be pretty switched on with powder too, because as I said before, like there's black powder, there's fast burning powder, there's slow burning powder. If you put the wrong powder in, it can be pretty dangerous too. So it's to be respected when you're playing with that stuff. You can't get, so as far as projectiles and brass, we can get them posted all throughout the country, not a problem, but powders and primers, primers will be a funny one to talk about when we get to it, if there is any in the country. they're dangerous goods. So you got to go pick it up yourself or get a mate to pick it up for you who has a license. So yeah, grains, that's obviously for reloading. We need our brass, we need powder, we need projectiles, as you said before, Maddie. They're in grains as well. So depending on the caliber, depending on how much, for instance, you can't just put like a 200 grain pill in something that's not designed to take that pill. That's why you'll find there's certain there's a bottom and a ceiling point for what grain bullets you can get for a specific, like a caliber, for instance, 30 cal, etc. And I think you can get those reloading books. There's quite a lot of information in there, and we might touch on that. But before we move on to there, one thing I did mention, we just touched on it for a second, is primers. This is the only issue with reloading. Primers have been a pain in the butt to get for probably about 2 years now. Now, there is stock coming in, but it goes pretty darn quick. Members of, for instance, New South Wales Rifle Association, they will hold some powder for you against your SID number. And I think it's the same with any other. Queensland have a Q store up there, which is sort of similar to what we have there at Malabar with the New South Wales Rifle Association. There's one for South Australia. Yeah, so primers are very hard to get at the moment, and that could be especially large rifle primers. And I think with primers, right? So I'm running CCI 200s at the moment, and if I was to put, say, a gold federal match in there, I would get different results. That's just changing primers is enough to change your recipe.
It sounds so technical.
You'd think a primer's a primer, wouldn't you? But
well, yeah, because it's just basically what's igniting and then going to set the powder off for you, to move your projectile. It's
pretty much. Some primers are, like for instance, CCIs, they're quite a hard primer. Some are a lot softer. So the pin obviously, strikes it a bit easier because it's not so hard. You wouldn't think all it is just, it's basically starts off there's obviously so much happening once that's ignited. There's gas pressures building. It's sent before you know it. There's a lot happening. It happens very, very quick. But yeah, so, one little thing like that can put it out. So basically, for instance, let's say I was shooting, weekend competition, which is what we do every Saturday. I might do 6 rounds with, let's say I've got 10. The details 10. I shoot 7 with CCIs. I've run out of CCIs. I've borrowed some Winchester or, some Federals. Expect to have different results. I don't know where they're going to go. They're going to kind of be close, hopefully, but yeah, it's guesswork from there. Yeah, so primers, changing them to your recipe will make a difference. And I think that's, again, depending on how much of a difference that's going to make, there's lots of variables there too. Certain bullets, it's just, it can upset the apple cart, so to speak. It'll still fire, but it mightn't be where your scope's set to, etc.
Yeah, it might not be as accurate.
Correct, yeah.
All right, well, we're talking about a couple of things here. I want to know about how do we go about making reloading even cheaper, because this is one of the ones for me, and it's probably something I need to start doing. I've always just shot and I've got rid of my brass. Now, when I was looking into reloading, I sat there and went, oh, crap, I should have been keeping this brass for a long time because I didn't realise it's almost half the cost or pretty close to that of the whole projectile when you're reloading.
Yeah, well, I think if you want to go and buy a bag of ADI brass, they usually come in bags at 50. You can buy like Lapua. They sell them in bigger I think 100 or 200 as well. But for instance, ADI, for 50 of them, brand new brass, never fired. I think they're about $70 for a bag of 50 brand new ones, and their size, they're pretty much ready to go. So yeah, you've probably shot yourself in the foot there, Matty.
Yeah, I know, but I've stopped doing that now. So, but
Yeah.
I'll start doing it. So, two things there is when you fire, the neck of the actual brass moves, so you've got to do something there to
They
fix it.
stretch. Yep.
And then you've also got to clean it. And that's where you've got something a little bit different to the standard. So I want to talk about the standard, and then I want to talk about what you do as well.
Yeah. Okay. So brass will stretch. For instance, that reloading book or loading manual I told you about before. Most of them cover every caliber. That's sort of old calibers, new calibers. There's all the information in there. So you've got all your case measurements. Because obviously your brass will fire form to your barrel too. So with reloading, there's, a lot of people will full size the case, or you can just neck size it. Some people use a mandrel in their neck sizer. They take the guts out of it, and that's a way to try and obtain consistent neck tension. So yeah, that's definitely part of the reloading. Was that next
So
part there, Matty?
so when you fire, and I've kept the brass, I'm going to have to do something to the neck to get it ready to go again.
Yeah, well, basically you got to check the length of it, right? So, for instance, SAMI specs for a 308 cartridge, 2005 inches, so 20.05 of an inch. That's the semi minimum, and then I think you're not supposed to let it go over 2015. So that's what you're playing with. Some of my cases are at 2 inches, just a flat 2. I don't go any lower than that. Now, to get it there, there's a lot of ways you can trim your brass back down. You will find you might be able to shoot, depending on the caliber, you might be able to fire that brass 2 or 3 times without even needing to resize it, so to speak. Especially if you go the low end of the semi-spec, because you've got all the way to go up to the 15. You know what I mean? Quarter.
Yep.
So there's a lot of ways to get your brass back to back in size in spec. You can spend as little as $25, or you can spend up to $200, $130, $400. So the sky's the limit. Personally, I just use a little Lee one, and it has a middle stem that screws into a cutting face, a carbide cutting face. You can either put that in a drill, or you can do it by hand, and basically you slide your shell over it, because as I said, there's that stem in the middle, and then what that does, that actually pokes through where the primer goes at the back of the case, and it won't let you spin it. It'll let you. It's sort of measured. That's the right length to get you into SAMI spec. So you can spin that bullet. That's why you can put it on a drill. You can smash through them really quick, or you can do them by hand. But it won't let you make it any shorter, because it maxes out, because that's pressing against the inside of the primer hole. So you can't. You don't have to be too paranoid about shaving too much off it and then going, I've just ruined my case, because you have that. That's perfectly sized if it's fitted correctly.
Does that mean your case, it has a shelf life? So you can only fire it, say, 10 times before it becomes too short for the caliber you're shooting?
Well, it's only ever going to grow. So brass is only ever going to grow. It's not going to shrink.
Even if you're shaving the neck off, it won't ever shorten, so you'll always be able to use that brass?
Well, it's nothing's forever, obviously. And I think I'd say there'd be lots of people that say, look, I might only get, 10 or 20 reloads, and then I might throw them out. To me, I don't do that. I check my brass once it's cleaned. I make sure that there's no signs of stress or cracks that I can see, and if it looks okay, When it's in spec, man, I'll shoot it. I think brass preps, as obviously you've seen, I have a vapor blast cabinet now. Usually most people will clean their brass with a tumbler, whether it be with steel pins or whether it will be with corn cob. They're the general sort of normal ways to do it. I've been experimenting with doing my brass in a vapor blasting cabinet at very low pressure. It's working great and makes it very easy to clean primer pockets because they usually can be a bit of a pain in the butt to clean. They stain up pretty good. So far, I haven't had any issues. A lot of people also anneal their necks. You can buy machines and it does it for you, or you can, get the blowtorch out and you can put a bit of heat back in there to help soften them up. I haven't gone down that bag yet. Probably will, but a lot of guys I know have been shooting for a long time and they don't anneal. So
Okay, that's
there's
interesting.
a bit of a debate there. Some guys swear on it. Yeah, I've got a bit of a mentor and a few of the guys from my club, and some do, some don't. I haven't really. I'm getting pretty good shots at times, so yeah, I haven't really gone that far yet.
Okay, you touched on a mentor just then.
Yep.
Is that probably the way to go when you're reloading? Because it does have so many sort of parameters and technical sort of specs that you've got to hit. Is it well worth getting someone that reloads and spending some time watching and learning rather than just the YouTube? Because I know YouTube's great for a lot of things and you can jump on and see it, but is it well worth having someone there that you're watching, you can throw questions at and learn from someone else?
Oh, look, everyone learns different, Matty. Some people can learn from reading. Some people are hands-on. I know for myself, I'm a very hands-on person. My mentoring, he's actually taken me under his wing to give me a bit of a hand to get this target thing sorted out. But with reloading, I spent a bit of time on YouTube getting my head around things. And then, I spent maybe 2 hours over his house one afternoon and, had a bit of a mini crash course, so to speak. Lots and lots of questions. And then pretty much I was straight into it myself. So, yeah, and I've made some mistakes. Give you some instances. So I was running some 155 burger hybrids, and they're quite a long bullet. They've got a long boat tail. The first few times, the first session of loading them, I was actually, what was I running? I think I was running 43 grains of 2208, and they were actually, the projectiles was actually getting marks. So when you're reloading, you'll actually sometimes get just a slight ring around the projectile, and that's just from whatever's in your, the part that actually pushes the projectile into the shell. Sometimes they can have a bit of a how would you say that? Just the edges off the die inside the they can be a bit sharp. They just need a bit of cleaning just to take the edge off a little bit. But with these VLDs, I was actually pushing the projectile way too deep, and I was actually crushing the powder. I've actually got 6 of those bullets, which I've got to pull them. Because I won't use them. I could shoot them, but it wouldn't feel nice. They're just super compressed. I could, but I'm not going to shoot them. But yeah, so I think with reloading, you need to be prepared. There's quite a few tools you need, and this is a good thing, you've got to be able to pull that bullet apart because, there's no point having live rounds floating around in there that you're not going to use. And I think there's actually 2 others from another load, and they're not because of that. They're just, I actually seated them not to what I wanted to. I wasn't concentrating. So I've got about 8 bullets I need to pull. I don't exactly know. I can't 100% guarantee what powder's in there. So whatever powder's in all those bullets is going in the bin because you don't want to be mixing powders either. So you don't want to, I think it's all 028, but half of it could be 6H. It's not a good idea.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, safety is paramount. So
Big time, man.
But rather be safe than sorry is always the go. All right, let's get into the Cerakote side of things, because you're a certified Cerakoter.
Yep.
Mate, your thoughts on Cerakoting? I've got one of my rifles I did aftermarket, and then I've got a Weatherby Vanguard that comes stock standard with, in the Meat Eater edition anyway, it comes stock standard being Cerakoted. I am a massive fan. What are some of the benefits out there for our listeners to have a rifle Cerakoted?
Mate, Cerakote is just, it's the guts of coatings. It is, Cerakote's an American company. As you know, a lot of the even Lithgow arms, they come out with Cerakote on a few of their models. Benefits, especially for a hunter, you don't have to worry about, getting a bit of rain in there, because bluing does wear off. This stuff is pretty darn durable. So there's quite a few series in the Cerakote range, and I've had a good experience with all of it. I've been, qualified applicator since 2018. As far as rifles, so they have three main series. So H series probably got the most amount of colours, and that's what you'll find what the factory guys use, like Lithgow, etc., Weatherby. They usually use like graphite black. That's a very common one. Armour black, which is a flat black. And they use titanium, etc. It's a very thin coating, as you might know. For the guys that don't know, it's basically you have to etch the substrate, the metal, go through a degreasing process. Before it's coated, it needs to go into the oven, and any oils that the substrate's absorbed over time, you need to soak them out. Basically, quickly give it another dust and put it in the oven. So it's oven cured. The H series, as I said, the most colours probably out of what they do would be in the H series. Now, when you look at that compared to paint, like in a scratch hardness, H series is 7 times harder than paint when it comes to a scratch hardness test. Elite series is about 9 times. And that's probably, I think they've only got about 10 colours now. That's the best they do. It's got one of my favourite blacks in it too, called E100 Blackout. It's got a real nice egg sheen on it. And then you go to C series, which is air cured. So H series and E series are both oven cured. Especially for firearms, they're good for 660 degrees, which is more than enough from what a firearm's going to ask. Where you go to the heat series, it's good for 1100, and that stuff's really good for like turbos, exhaust, engine blocks, just that type of stuff. Can use it in industrial settings as well. And then you also have the other products like the Micro Sleek. So that's really good for bolts. It's basically like a dry film Teflon paint, basically. That's oven cured as well. They also do piston coats as well, where you can do the top of pistons. And yeah, the testing I've done with that, 30 to 55 degrees difference in heat. If you put a blowtorch on the top of a piston for the same amount, one with the coating, one without, underneath where the bearings are, 30 to 50 degrees difference. So it's pretty good stuff. But yeah, like it's, there's so much test information on Cerakote's website. So they've done acid bath testing and they've compared it against bluing. There's quite a few companies that make coatings for the firearms industry. There's Cerakote, Cerakote, and I believe there's another one. And Cerakote seem to come up trump. I know the ADF, they did some testing that went for 4 years. They tested in Timor, Afghanistan, and a few other things. But yeah, they tested I did know the exact figures actually. I was speaking to him not long ago, but yeah, it was a 4-year test. The Australian Defence did it, and yeah, that's what we use. The Army use Cerakote as well. So it's quite durable, matey.
Oh, I know. I love the fact. So for our listeners out there, I have a Tikka T3X in 243, and it's a stainless barrel. And I remember on a hunt down in the Snowies, it rained, and I was out there for 3 days, and it rained one night. And I don't tend to take cleaning gear away with me when I go hunting, because I tend to just do it when I get back. And when I got back, even though it was only a day after it had rained, or maybe a day and a half at best, I'd started to get those little rust spots on the barrel.
Yep.
And I just went, you know what? Like it's stainless, not stain proof. And that sort of made me go, you know what? I'm going to get it done. And I did that with the Tikka, so it came up good. And I just find I don't think about anything to do with the cleaning side of it as much, and I'm not worried about if it's raining. I don't care, because I know it's going to be fine. And if you grab the barrel, it's no big deal, because the oil on your hand's not going to matter. And I think that just that little bit of extra time cleaning, knowing if I drop it, and scratch it or anything like that, it's really, it's going to get beaten around being out in the bush. It's no big deal. So for me, Cerakoting is just 100%. A must, and most of my guns now, or the ones I'm going to get, will definitely be either Cerakoted or aftermarket. I'll get the Cerakoting done, because it's just the way to go. I'm a massive fan of it, and I've only had really good experiences so far. So, and plus I do like the idea of the colours. For me, I know I changed the colour on my Tikka because I didn't want that stainless barrel out in the field. So I changed the colour, and it came up quite good with the camo stock. So that's a win.
Just with the stainless, any rifle, you're going to pay extra for a stainless, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%.
If you just go a normal blued, put that towards a coating, that you're going to be a shitload more happy. And as you said, with the stainless, you don't want the glare. The sun's going to bounce off it, isn't it? So, yeah, it's something to consider. Pay, 150, or some barrels, I think, are 200 difference between stainless and blued. That can actually get you really close to getting in a colour you want and personalising your rifle, as you were saying before.
I do like that, and that's something I have thought about. Is there much of a difference in the barrel life and accuracy between a blued barrel and a stainless barrel? Because I have heard a million different things out there. What are your thoughts on it?
I tend to not. I mean, there's so many more variances with barrels, like barrel profiles. You got sporter barrels. The carbon barrels are supposed to be shit hot. I don't have much experience with carbon barrels, but I know people that swear by them. You can get fluted barrels, all that. It's a bit of don't really have enough on that one to really, what I'd say probably wouldn't hold much weight, to be honest, Matty.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the honesty. I found my most accurate rifle is blued.
Yeah.
Which is not really surprising, but for me, I do prefer the stainless, and I just think from, as you sort of said before, the blued. But then if you're going to Cerakote it, is it such a big deal? It's probably not. Yeah, so that makes sense.
Not. It really isn't. Yeah, there's just, mate, there's no negatives to having your stuff Cerakoted. As you said, you were out that hunting for 3 days. Cerakote, you don't worry about it, mate. You don't have to worry about it. You can leave your gun out in the bush for a month and it'll still be fine. You leave something out that's blued, it'll be
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so, and less is more, less to worry about, less to be concerned. Keep your eye on the prize and concentrate on what you're doing instead of worrying about stuff you don't have to. And I think that in itself is very important.
All right. Really appreciate the info tonight. And, mate, I am such a massive fan of Cerakote. As I said, I don't think there's going to be ever a rifle in my safe that's not going to be Cerakoted. Mate, for anyone that wants to get in touch to talk about Cerakoting, where can they find you?
Okay, so we're on Facebook and Instagram. Email is hazztechservices@gmail.com, HAZZTECH. Anyone that's subscribed, just mention the podcast or mention Matty, and I'm happy to give you 10% off.
All right, sweet guys. So if you do want to check out Cerakote with Hazztech, he'll chuck in 10% if you listen to the podcast. Just quote it. Mate, really appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for coming on. I hope our listeners have learnt something. I know I've learnt a couple of different things about the reloading especially, so I do appreciate your time, and it's definitely something I need to look at getting into ASAP. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Bye for now. If you have a topic, guest, question, or any gear that you want to hear about on the podcast, shoot us an email, australianhuntingandbeyond@gmail.com. Alternatively, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All the links are in the show notes. If you haven't already, make sure you give us a review and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.